Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we find ourselves as great commanders and politicians in Britain between 872 and 898 AD, where the kingdoms are at war. To claim these lands, you'll need to tread a dangerous path between the Danes and the Saxon armies. Will you betray your allies for power? What part will you play in the birth of a new nation? And will you ultimately rule it all? The Last Kingdom board game takes 30 minutes per player to play, is for ages 14 and up, and it's published by Gamelyn Games. Now it's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works and I'll see you on the other side. This is a Kickstarter preview, so all the art and components you see here are not final, they're prototypes. To see the most up-to-date art and components, check the Kickstarter link in the description of this video. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to either select a leader or you can deal them out randomly, and there's many to choose from. And once a player has chosen a leader, they're going to take the miniature and it shows you what it looks like here, and they're going to put it in a starting region. Each player is going to get a shield that they'll hide some action tokens behind, and that's what the front of the shield looks like. And they'll have their leader mat right there. Now here's the board set up for 4 players. The miniatures are in their starting regions. Now the game is played over 2 successive rounds. And each round, each of these regions is going to go through a conflict that's going to resolve. And each player has a starting allegiance. In this case, it's Dane. Now allegiances are important because the main way to get points in this game, even though there's many different ways to get points, the main way is to be on the winning side of a conflict. And there's basically 2 sides. There's the Danes and then there's the Saxons. Now this is an affinity track. Now the Danes just have 1 track, but the Saxons have 3 different tracks, 1 for each of the different factions within the Saxon. Now you'll notice that if this was us here, we start at a certain level of each of the different affinity tracks, and so does everyone. And when there's multiples of these, you can just, put them on top of each other, but I've got them sort of separated out so you can see all of the different things. So each of the 4 players has one of these tokens on each of these affinity tracks, and this is really important for the scoring in the game, what you're trying to do. So you'll be able to see which region is going to have the conflict right now, and you'll see which region is going to have the conflict after this one is resolved. Now, you'll see these here. These are cubes right now in this prototype. These are armies that have to do with the different factions of Saxons and the Danes. But again, this is a prototype, and here's an image of what those armies actually will look like. They're really cool on the board. They're small, but they're very detailed. Now what's going to happen is players are going to be playing cards. We're going to draft cards. I'm going to show you more about the cards in just a moment, but just the basics of how you score these resolved conflicts is, in this case, both of these leaders have a ring on them, and that's to show their allegiance. They are with the Dane. The orange ring shows that. Now these are armies from the Dane because they're orange. So right now they have a strength of 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the Saxons have a strength of 1, 2, 3. Even though those are from 2 different factions within the Saxons, they're still within the Saxons. So it is 4 to 3 right now. Now these are just the basics. There's actually abilities that change these things. I'm not going to go over those. I'm just showing you like a very basic example right now. And so right now, the Danes are winning 4 to 3. Let's just say this is how this conflict ended. I'm going to talk about how conflicts work in just a moment. Players are basically going to be playing cards, and once everyone successfully passes, the conflict will end. And whichever one is in the lead, in this case the Danes, are on the winning side. And you're trying to be on the winning side. And again, the side you're on is denoted by the ring around your miniature, but that's also told by this. And this is, we are on the Dane side. Now we'll talk about switching allegiances a little later. And I also told you that some abilities change some things. For example, in round 1, he has 2 strength, and in round 2, he has 3 strength. So we actually would have had more strength on the board, but again, just giving you a very basic example. If you're on the winning side, you're going to score points. Now, both of these people, of these leaders, are on the Dane side, so both of them are going to score points. And the way this works is you look at the number of armies and or heroes that are out there. Now let's just look at the armies in this example, because right now we just have the 2 leaders and their 2 armies. So here there are 2 armies there. So it becomes like a multiplier scoring. Both of these are in this band here. So 2 of them, each of the armies is going to be worth 2 points. So both of these players, because they were on the winning side, are going to get 4 points there. 2 times the 2 armies. So you can see that as you start to move up some of these tracks, you're focusing on and wanting those armies to be in conflicts, and you're going to want to be on the side of them, and you're going to want them to win those conflicts because the multipliers go up and up. Now let's say this player had recently flipped allegiances and they actually were on the Saxon side, meaning you were the only player around the game that was on the Dane side. Now if that was the case and that side won, you'd actually get 5 extra points for doing that because you're the only one basically that's going to be helping in that conflict in that way. Now if you're on the losing side, you'll actually get some more action tokens. These are going to be like a form of currency you'll be able to use to do different things throughout the game that I'll show you in just a bit. And if you're the only losing player on the side that lost, you'll actually get 2 additional ones. So in a nutshell, that's the very basics of the main way to score in the game with conflict. So let's talk a little bit more about how you go about doing this. Now at the beginning of the game, in addition to your leader Matt, you're going to get 2 cards that are specific to your leader that you're going to get in each of the rounds. You're going to use them in round 1, you'll use them in round 2 as well. And these are essentially going to be action cards that you're going to be able to use that are usually pretty powerful but very specific to your leader. Now remember, the game is 2 rounds, and at the beginning of round 1, you're going to take this deck of cards, and each player is going to get 5 cards, and you'll begin a drafting procedure to select the cards that you're going to be using throughout the round. Remember, through this entire round, each one of these regions are going to have a conflict. Then the round's going to end. So in that drafting procedure, you'll get a hand of 5 cards. You'll select one and put it face down, pass the cards to your left in round 1, pass it to the right in the second half of the game in round 2. But you'll keep doing this until you've drafted 4 cards. The last card you don't select is discarded, so that you're going to have 4 cards plus your 2 leader cards. Now, different things are going to happen. Some of the cards you drafted are going to have this icon, and at the end of drafting, you get to immediately place it down and do this thing. Like this is having us go up the Dane affinity track. So this would move up here like that. Now we're still in this band, so we still have to go up another one to get to the next level of multiplier, but this is sort of setting us up because this is very important. Moving up these tracks, there's not a lot of things that allow you to do that in the game, but it's very important because that's how you're going to be, putting your strategies together for trying to, get the most points in the game. Now, other cards are going to allow you to bring heroes out throughout the round. And each of these heroes are going to have, a miniature. You're going to be placing them in regions. They're going to be counting for specific things, like their allegiance is Dane. So they're going to count towards 1 Dane for your scoring only. So it's cool to have a little bit of help there if that's the strategy you're going for. Other cards are going to allow you to move different types of armies in and take different armies out and things like that. But basically, it's a lot of manipulating the armies and heroes and leaders and moving things around to try to affect the conflicts, if you will. So players are going to take turns in clockwise order. When it's your turn, you can pass or you can take an action. Now, one of the different things you can do is play a card. Now, some cards have this icon on it, and this is sort of like a secondary action. This allows you to play a card before your normal primary action. It's sort of like an extra thing. Like this will allow you to draw a round 2 card off the top of the deck and add it to your hand, and it doesn't end your turn. This is a secondary action. It's really cool. You can get one of these more powerful cards in your hand. And so there's different things that you could do before your main actions, which is really cool. Now, for my primary action, I might play a card. Now to play a card, I would do this, and it has some iconography, but this is basically move 1 Dane army to an adjacent region, then you may move up to 1 West Saxon and one of the other 2 Saxon factions there. So you can remove one of each of these and move a Dane in there. It's a crushing blow. So for example, let's say we had not yet finished resolving the example I showed you before, and look at this. We've got some strength here, we've got some armies here where we want the Danes to win this because we're on that side. We don't plan on switching alliances, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Now, by the way, these armies here are somewhat set at the beginning of the game, but there's always some random ones that are pulled out. But that's just to start the game, because as you can see, that card just allowed me to move an army, like a Dane, from an adjacent region into here. And then they're able to take out one of each of the other Saxons. Now, there was no blue one there, but they would take that. Look at that. Now look at the strength. Like, we're doing well. And remember, because when it ends, you're going to get points for each of these. So every one of these I can get here, up to 5 of them is the max that you can score with. You're going to be able to score with those, and it's going to be going up your multiplier. So it's not enough to just, win. Sometimes you want to win and continue to put armies in the winning side for you, or take them away. Even if someone else is going to be winning a conflict, you can reduce the amount of points they're going to win. Even if you know you're going to lose the conflict, you'll be working to sometimes drive away how many armies they have there, because that's going to, even though they're going to win, it's going to bring their scoring down a bit. So there's a lot of give and take in this game. And after you have taken action or pass, it goes to the next player. Now remember, if you pass, you can come back in. And passing is actually a big strategy of this game, because the cards that you've drafted at the beginning of the round, typically you don't get more of these. And so remember, you're going to be going over 5 different conflicts, and you need to use the right cards at the right time. So You might be passing, waiting to see a little bit what happens, what transpires, and then decide to come back in. Now, one of the things you can do on your turn is to move, and it tells you on your map, spend 2 action tokens to move. So I would spend these 2 from behind my shield, and I can move to 1 additional region. So he can move up to 2. Now, in this case, I'm fighting in that first region that we're actually, the conflict is. I probably wouldn't move, but that's just showing you something that you could do in the game. Now, remember, in the basic example, I did not take in his ability, but he's actually adding 2 strength to that conflict as well. So because I actually have 2 strength there, it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 1. Right now, we're showing that the strength is 6 to 1 so if it resolved now, the Danes would win. Now, the other leaders that are in the game right now that happen to be on the allegiance of the Saxon are going to be talking. This game is a lot of it's played on the table, but a lot of it's played off the table. You're going to be talking to each other, be like, hey, what do you want to do? You want to go over there and help do this? You want to do this? Can you help me over here? You'll be working together to either be trying to do something to the current conflict or move into the region that the next conflict's going to be and start setting yourselves up for that one, right? Or do you start to work with each other knowing that one of you is going to betray the other and become a Dane, or vice versa? There's a lot of things in here that you're going to be betraying and backstabbing your friends in this game. Now, another action you could do on your turn is a market action. Now, here are different actions. These are here every game, and then these are going to cost a certain amount of those action tokens. So if I wanted to place 2 Dane armies, I'd be able to spend 3 action tokens. I would do this, but then this would slide over here, and now to do this action, it's going to be costing 6. Someone might use this to switch allegiances, and to doing that at the right time is actually a lot of times the key in knowing when to do that to try to get the most points and win the game. Now, this becomes even more interesting if you're having a conflict in a region like this, where there's 2 Saxon leaders and there's 1 Dane leader. This Dane leader's special abilities, every time they pass, they get to add a Dane to this region. So these 2 are sort of working against this player. But even with that being said, you look at the affinity track, and when it comes time to play cards, these 2 are actually, they're still on the same side. They're on the Saxon side. So they're going to be trying to add armies of Saxon. This player is going to be trying to add this specific faction, and this one's going to be trying to add this specific faction, because remember, if they win, they're going to be scoring points, but if this person can score more than the person they're working with, they're better off. Here, they're sort of tied a little bit. So maybe this player starts adding a bunch of these ones on, like this. This player continues to pass. A couple times later, it looks like this, and now things start to go over a little wild, and this person starts to go, hey, you know what? Why don't you come on my side, and we'll just, if not, this player's going to start building up a bunch of these Northumbrians, and they're going to be able to score more than you. Why don't you come to my side? So that player's thinking, yeah, you know what? I have moved up a little bit on the Dane affinity track, and we're going to score about the same amount of points, and so I can either score the same amount with you, or if we win this other thing now, if this player is able to get a bunch of these Saxons on there, they're going to have a bigger differential. Maybe I should switch. So maybe they play a card, or maybe they spend 3 action discs here, and they switch allegiances, and now they're on the Dane side. So now she's switched allegiances, and now that affects the strength, because now you've got strength here, and you've got strength here. Now the Saxons are still sort of winning the strength here, but with having a second leader here working together, you might be able to overtake them and be on the winning side of this conflict. So that's a lot of what happens in this game, is a lot of backstabbing, a lot of talking, some switching allegiances here and there. Maybe the next turn she brings out this hero and is able to count as a West Saxon or a Dane. So she's going to use this as a Dane and start using things. So all sorts of things back and forth. But remember, you got limited resources. You got to figure out which battle to play the cards in and which ones not to, because again, you only have 6 cards by default for the entire round. Now, another thing you can do on your turn, instead of just passing, you can prepare for invasion, which is kind of like a hard pass, because normally when you pass, you can come back in. If you do this, you cannot come back in, but you take this. What this does, it gives you action tokens equal to how many other regions have already been resolved this round. Then you get to be the one to say where the next conflict is going to be. So it gives you some power there. Now again, there's only 1 region under conflict at a specific time in the game, but I've been kind of jumping around to show you what might happen in different regions when those conflicts come up. Like here, maybe the Danes ended up winning this. Not only will each of these leaders score, but if there's more than 5 armies, they end up getting sort of disbanded. It kind of breaks that down a little bit. And so for example, here we have 2 of these, 3 of these, 1 of these, and 4 of these. So you would break them down, so 1 at a time. So now this one has 4, you would still take it off until it has as much as something else, and then they both lose. And you keep doing this till you get down to there's 5 or less. So there's 2 of these 3, so they're gone. And now that you have 5 or less, it's done. Then you go on to wherever the next conflict is. And to show that this conflict is over, you'd put this peace marker showing which side won, in this case the Danes. Again, that makes sense because you know which ones have been done for this round, and also it helps for that preparing the invasion because you'd get as many action tokens as how many of those are out there. Now in a nutshell, that's kind of how the game's played, but let me show you what some of these other actions do to give you a flavor of the game. So for example, this allows you to remove 1 army from 2 adjacent regions, then gain 2 points. Points are essentially little tokens that look like this in the game. Here's adding a Saxon of each of the 3 factions to 3 different regions. This allows you to look at the 3 top cards of round 2 and keep 1, put the others at the bottom. This is moving up the affinity track on any one of the 4 affinity tracks. This is moving some into here, and then 1 from here into here. This is adding Danes. This is switching allegiances. Now at the end of the round, you're going to get your 2 leader cards back that you can use again next round, in round 2, but you're also going to be going through that drafting procedure again, this time passing to the right, but these cards are more powerful. Now here's some round 2 cards. Let's look at some of these. This is a hero that you can place out, and it counts as one of these types of Saxons, and whenever an action adds 1 or more of those types, you can add 1 to any region, so really putting a lot of those up. So if you have this hero, you're going to be working up that affinity track quite a bit. Here you can move a leader or a hero into any region. Here you remove 1 army from 1 region, and then select 2 adjacent regions, and then take them out of there as well. Here's gathering 2 different action tokens that allow you to do it, and then whenever 1 or more armies of any kind are removed, you gain another one. So you're going to be able to really do a lot of those expensive actions. This is one that you would have flipped over right after you drafted it at the end of the drafting part of the round. Here's remove 1 of each of the different Saxon faction armies from 3 separate regions. Here's getting a bunch of action tokens, again allowing you to do those, some of the ones that might be more powerful that people are using more often in the market action track. Another hero counts as a Dane, but if it's not in the conflict region, anytime 1 or more Dane armies are removed for any reason, you get to remove 1 Saxon army. So again, if you have this hero, you're going to be working on the Dane side for most of the game, or while you have her. Here's gaining action tokens and going up 2 affinities on that Saxon affinity track. So lots of different things, as you can see. And in a nutshell, that's how you play. The one with the most points at the end of the second round is the winner. And there are some slight changes for a 2-player game. For example, there's a backside of these that are specific for 2 players. And these have some different things going on to make sure that the 2-player experience is top-notch. There's certain ways to lock certain regions. And that lock just makes it so that for for that specific conflict, you're not able to change allegiances. So it's a way to sort of balance things out there. There's also a momentum marker that goes to the side that won the conflict. And in the next conflict, this adds 1 person to this side. So for example, if this player lost this side, this conflict, this is here. In the next conflict, this Dane side has 1 more person. So if this player is able to win the next conflict, then they'll win the on your own bonus, getting 5 additional victory points. And in a nutshell, that's how you play the Last Kingdom board game. Well, there you have the Last Kingdom board game, and as I showed in the overview, you'll be drafting cards, making alliances, and betraying your friends with tricks up your sleeves. Now, if you'd like to see the most up-to-date art and components and the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me right in the description of this video. Now, that's going to take you directly to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure that Gamelyn Games would love your support.